Alright Reds, this is Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index, and this is a paid advertisement from BetterHelp Therapy Online. What's something you'd always wanted to learn? Remember back when you were a kid, always curious, always discovering something new. Now think about this, as an adult, do you still spark that joy of learning new things? Whether it's gardening, picking up a new language, or maybe mastering bowling to outshine your best friend, it's essential to keep that spirit alive. And guess what? Therapy can be a fantastic way to reconnect with your inner student, your sense of wonder. Because truly, the back-to-school vibe isn't just for kids or young adults, it's for everyone at any stage of life. Now, I haven't used BetterHelp myself, but I've seen firsthand how therapy can dramatically shift perspectives. It's not just about heavy issues, it's about enhancing your everyday life, learning to cope better with daily stress, setting healthy boundaries, and empowering yourself to be the best version of yourself. It's a space where anyone can benefit from a little extra insight and support. So why BetterHelp? Well, it's therapy that fully adapts to your timetable, and it's all online. Just fill out a brief questionnaire, and they'll match you with a therapist. And if you feel the need to change therapists, you can switch anytime without an extra charge. How's that for flexibility? With over 5,000 therapists in the UK, BetterHelp offers a wide variety of specialists, ready to help you rediscover your curiosity and tackle new challenges. Visit betterhelp.com/index today. There's a bonus. Get 10% off your first month. Remember, that's betterhelp.com/index. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp and keep on learning, no matter where you are on life's journey.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
This episode is brought to you by Microsoft Azure. Turn your ideas into reality with an Azure free account. Get everything you need to develop apps across cloud and hybrid environments, scale workloads, create cloud-connected mobile experiences, and so much more. Discover what you can create with popular services free for 12 months. Learn more at azure.com. That's AZURE.com. And sign up for a free account to start building in the cloud today.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AEye Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AEye Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AEye Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to AEye Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
Stellar form, thank you. I'm looking forward to getting out of what has suddenly become torrential rain.
Oh, well, the sun is actually shining here for the first time of a morning this week. Yesterday we had, I would say, about 7 different seasons in one go. It was quite interesting, but today is actually not too bad so far, but I wouldn't trust it. We have decided, in our infinite wisdom, to fix Manchester United, who are, without question, a laughingstock to all. So we don't want to fix them. We're not going to go too deep into the weeds on it. We're not going to go in depth and build out a 3 to 5 year plan for them. What we thought we'd do is we'd basically sort them out until the end of next summer. So we'll have a look at the coach, a January move or two, and then next summer, and get them ready for the 25-26 season. And hopefully they can then stop embarrassing themselves on a weekly basis. So, Mr. Matchett, I put the question to you, what are you doing with Eric Ten Hag?
This isn't going to be a long conversation. Eric Ten Hag is thanked for his hard work. He gets a paragraph and a half on the official club website, and he goes on his merry way.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only option here, really, isn't it? Like, he's just not, he doesn't seem to have the mindset, the mentality to work at a club like United. He doesn't seem to understand what the demands are. And he's never once accepted any sort of responsibility for any of the issues. He constantly has blamed other factors, whether it's the players he's throwing under the bus, whether he's saying, I don't have the players, and basically making out that the board haven't backed him enough. He's just a very odd individual who I'm sure will have success back at Ajax or wherever it is he ends up, but he's just not getting the job done.
No, he lacks everything, I think, to be honest, at a club like Man United. He lacks authority. I don't mean with the players. I mean, when he speaks, he lacks credibility in the explanations he gives about defeat after defeat after defeat. He lies, basically, like most managers do, but he doesn't do it in a convincing way when he's talking about good things and bad things from matches. You know, loads of bosses that we've seen over the years will just flat out lie about what we've just witnessed ourselves, but they will say it in a way that they are absolutely unequivocal in what they have seen, and that if you've seen something different, that's wrong because you're not the one who's directing this team. He doesn't really have that kind of gravitas about speaking about his own club, and he's not. I don't think he's done particularly well at developing any individuals that we could particularly name. I know Kobe Mainoo has obviously come through and played a lot of game time while he's been there, but I don't know what state Mainoo was in beforehand, and I couldn't pick out any other players who I think he's markedly improved over his time there.
No, me neither. And I think if you look at the sort of the big two stars that he inherited, Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford, I would argue that neither of them have been as good under him as they were under the previous manager, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So I know Rashford had that one really good spell sort of around the World Cup. But other than that, I think he's been largely disappointing for United for the last couple of years. And at least under Ollie, I felt like he carried a legitimate threat a lot of the time. So, yeah, unfortunately for Mr. Ten Hag, you are out the gap for me as well. You do not represent the type of manager, the type of personality that is needed for a club. Like, it's easy for us to mock them about a lot of things, but the fact of the matter is they're a massive football club. Like, they stand alongside us, maybe even above us in terms of the biggest club in England. They're one of the biggest clubs in the world. They're a money-making machine, but they would make a lot more money if they were actually winning, because more sponsors would be interested in getting involved with them if they were a legitimate threat to win the Champions League, if they were winning Premier League titles. So Eric Ten Hag has to go. So just to give people a little bit of inside baseball, as Danny would call it, I'm going to talk probably more on this one because Karl is not well. So we're going to limit how much he has to say. But Karl, who are you going for as manager?
So I did ponder bringing somebody in just for, let's say, the rest of this season. It's only 3 games in, so it would be the entirety of the season, wouldn't it? And then sort of reassessing in summer with a new one. But actually, I think there's enough bosses out of work who you could say just come in and, you know, this first season is all about getting United back into the top 5, maybe 6, but certainly top 5 or so would be the initial aim. And I think it's doable with organisation and pragmatism. We've seen Man United at their best even now as a counter-attacking side, so I think I would be looking at someone who can organise and play counter-attacking, and then next year then move on. So do you want the actual name who I've gone for?
Yeah, give me the name.
Okay, well, I've gone for Thomas Tuchel. It's not a particularly out there or wild suggestion. He's been linked with United plenty of times before. He obviously has not quite, I wouldn't say, done great jobs in his last couple of places that he's been at, but out of work, he's certainly used to being around expectant sides. I would say that Chelsea did wrong in getting rid of him at the time they did, and Bayern Munich simply is a bit of a basket case at the moment, so perhaps hamstrung there a little bit. So I would be looking at Tuchel. I think he's the manager who is currently available with the most, not necessarily prestige, but certainly proven ability to coach players, to build a side. And if he's willing to come in and basically do a pragmatic job in season one, playing quite counter-attacking football, a little deeper than he normally would do, and then sort of year two, then onwards, you're rebuilding in the way that he would prefer the team to be structured. I think that's very doable.
And that's exactly who I've gone for as well. And it's because he's a bit of a chameleon. Like, if we think back to Thomas Tuchel in the early days of his career at Mainz and at Dortmund, he played a very attacking, exciting brand of football. When he went to PSG, he had to temper that a little bit because he was being forced to play Thiago Silva. But it was still an attacking, exciting brand of football at times. He went to Chelsea and he realised that he had to turn it around quite quickly. So he instilled a very defensive style, a very counter-attack heavy style, which is obviously what we're going to look for him to come in and do at United as well. But I think in Thomas Tuchel's soul, he wants to be an attacking coach. He wants to be a creative coach. So that's why I went for him too, because this team, as you said, is set up to counterattack. It's not really set up to do a whole lot of anything else. But there are enough good players here that it can be turned around and it can be altered into being a more possession-heavy team, a team that can control games from the off, a team that can unlock defenses. Like, you've got players like Amad Diallo, Bruno Fernandes, Mason Mount when he's in form, Mainu, who are all capable of breaking lines, either with passing or in Mainu's case, ball carrying. So I do think there's talent here to alter what they've been doing. So I went for Tuchel as well. And again, as we normally do, we haven't talked about this beforehand, so it is just funny that we've got the same manager. Now, we have agreed that for January, we're allowed one transfer out and one transfer in. And I have a feeling we're both going to have the same transfer out. So I'll give you mine.
Yeah.
I think it's imperative that they get Casemiro out of the club. He's on enormous money. He's a liability at this point. It's actually quite sad to watch because he was such a quality player. But I think it's imperative that you get him out of the club to take away the possibility that the manager might just play him. So I've got Casemiro out.
We do have a difference in that case.
Oh, good.
Excuse me. I have gone for the, should we say, squad building rather than team building out the door for the first one, and that's Anthony. I have zero interest in utilising Anthony, the footballer. He's just not good. He's not consistent. He's not quick enough to play on the counter-attack. He doesn't have end product or decision-making. I think for the system that I would be setting up or looking to set up that Tuchel has played previously in his counter-attacking manner of a 3-4-3, effectively, there's not a space forward, basically. There's only going to be effectively one wide forward in this, and it's not him. So whether it's salary, whether it's money, if it's a loan, whatever, I think him out the door.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's absolutely fair. He certainly doesn't feature in my plans. But I was wondering, you're looking at Saudi Arabia really for him, aren't you? If you want to get any kind of decent fee. and they tend to spend more in the summer window than they do in the January window. So I was hoping maybe you could get 30 million in the summer as opposed to maybe having to take 15 to 20 in the January window. Now, what I am doing when we get to summer is I'm taking the approach of I don't care, I didn't buy them when it comes to getting rid of a lot of the players that are at this club. There's going to be heavy losses taken, similar to what they've had to do with Jadon Sancho. But I didn't buy the players, so I don't care. It's somebody else's fault that we've lost X amount of money on these players. So you've got Anthony going out. I've got Casemiro going out. Who is your one incoming for January?
Actually, in the end, I have decided not to do anything coming in, unless there happens to obviously be some sort of injury. I am taking the approach of keep the powder dry, basically. I think there's enough numbers there. You know, it's only really this summer, which has just finished this summer transfer window, where they've gotten rid of quite a lot of bloat. I think there's enough quality there in that Man United team to, in this league, in this Premier League, certainly finish top 6 if they just had some sort of structure, if they had some sort of defensive presence. There's 6 centre-backs there. If I'm looking at a back 3, that's enough. The only thing I would say you could potentially add is a wing-back, but I think the type of wing-back and then the potential to go to a back 4 for the following campaign, I probably just wouldn't. And if Malacia is back by then, if Shaw is more often available, I think that's just not really worth upgrading or trying to upgrade in mid-season.
Well, we have another disagreement because I can never put any faith in a player like Luke Shaw, who, for me, I just think you take a look at him and he doesn't look like a fella that holds himself to a high professional standard. In his Manchester United career, which, would you believe, is now 10 seasons long, he has played over 30 league games twice. In all competitions, 28, 19, 19, 40, to be fair, 33, 47, 27, 47, and 15 last year. I can put no faith in a player like that. So come summer, Luke Shaw will be heading out the door. I don't care where he goes. There will be a club, probably West Ham, foolish enough to give me money for him. So I wanted a wing-back who can also play as a full-back. So I've decided to go for Rayan Aït-Nouri of Wolves. I think 30 million gets him in January. Casemiro will probably bring in 15 million from the Saudis because he's a big name. Casemiro's wages are enormous. Aït-Nouri's will be more in line with what I'm looking to have players on. I'm going to take the Michael Edwards approach, where I'll be happy to overpay a little bit on fees. Now, 30 million is not an overpay for Aït-Nouri, but I'll be happy to overpay on fees if players are coming in on lower wages, implementing a strict wage structure, because quite frankly, the fact that at, I think he's 26, turning 27, Marcus Rashford is on 350 grand a week is farcical. The fact that Jadon Sancho joined the club on 300 grand a week, the fact that Casemiro, Rafael Varane, players like this were on 300 to 350,000 a week is just ridiculous. So getting rid of overpaid players like Luke Shaw, like Casemiro, players that can't be relied on, they have to go. And by bringing in Aït-Nouri, I'll be sending a very clear message to Luke Shaw that you don't have a future here. Get your agent working on finding you something for the summer. Right. So what does your team look like then for, in your mind, as the director of football, when you're sitting down talking to Thomas Tuchel, what does your team look like for the rest of the season?
I've got Dan Morgan here on the pod. Say hi, Dan.
Hey, how's it going today?
It's going good, man. Tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Dan Morgan. I'm an attorney and a managing partner at Morgan & Morgan, which is America's largest injury law firm.
That's pretty awesome. Why do you guys think you win so many cases?
The insurance companies and other companies that we go against know that we're going to take it to the end, that we believe in the case. So we fight for every dollar, and we're not afraid to go that extra mile for our clients.
Are insurance companies actually afraid of you guys?
We don't bluff. We take it to trial, and we are not strangers of getting very, very, very large verdicts.
Awesome. So how does someone get in contact with Morgan & Morgan? What would I do if I got into an accident?
Probably the easiest way is dialing pound law. That's pound 529 from your cell phone. And our call center is always waiting to take your call. 24/7, 365.
Wow. Dan Morgan from Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. Thanks for coming by the show.
Thanks for having me. Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. Ha. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Obviously, Onana going in goal. If there's a possibility to get Bayern involved in some situation, I think it's a feasible one to do. I'm not really sure how good he is. He was very highly rated before he got there. He's only had a couple of games, obviously, since he joined, though, so it's very difficult to adequately place him. But United have been quite vocal about the qualities and the trust and all the rest of it in Onana, so I would stick with him, certainly for the campaign. You have to wait and see, basically, how he performs at that stage and in that setup to see if he's actually going to be the one that you need. Back three, as I said, I think it should be reasonable if you're sitting deeper, if you are looking to counter-attack, not necessarily play out drastically from the back, but just use that as a platform to go from very, very quickly into midfield or into wing-back areas. De Ligt right, Maguire centre, Martinez left. Yoro, obviously, when he comes back, would be involved. But again, that may well be a half season of integration by the time he's back from quite a significant injury, getting used to the league, young player, all the rest of it. Lindelof and Johnny Evans are enjoying their final months at the club, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, I would. Unfortunately, it has to be Onana in goal. I would actually start Yoro and play De Ligt in the middle. Yoro right side, De Ligt in the middle, Martinez on the left. Then I've got Delot and Mazraoui as my right wing back options, and I'm happy enough with that. They're not overly attack minded, but they're both decent on the ball. They're both good defensively. They're good passers as opposed to the type that will overlap and be ultra creative. From there, it's Ugarte and it's got to be Ugarte and Mainu as a double pivot. And then Bruno and Rashford, I suppose, behind whichever striker is in form. They don't really have a preference between the two.
Yeah. I think the good thing about the strikers is that they are probably both of a level, of an age, of experience, and of goal-scoring exploits behind them, whereby there isn't a clear number one, and that should, in theory, push both of them on to do absolutely good things. Obviously, there's going to be slight differences in terms of how they contribute, build up play, and the type of chances that they benefit from, but the fact that neither of them can say, I have to be in the team, should, in theory, push them both on, and you may get a little bit more out of them than you otherwise might do. That's really the only thing that makes sense for United's work this summer between the two of them, because if you want Højlund to get better, your choices are basically either really, really good coaching for him, or a foil to play off, or someone really experienced and really good to learn from, that kind of thing, or this competition, and see which one it brings out the best. It's not necessarily a foolproof way of both of them improving, but one of them has to push themselves. So I would be the same: Dalot, Mazraoui, Shaw, any 2 from 3 as wing backs, Malacia just as a backup, basically. Ugarte and Mainu as the double pivot. Again, I don't think Ugarte is the only one defensive in a 4-3-3 is quite what I'd be looking for in terms of picking up the ball and starting possession from deep and so on. But in a double pivot, I think that's pretty good, actually. They should have the mobility and technique there, the defensive awareness to sort of mix with playing through the thirds to do a decent job. Casemiro maybe is a little bit better, therefore, when he's not being utilised all the time as well. It could be a thing. Christian Eriksen as an alternative, but that's a pretty weak midfield. That's the only thing I would say in terms of squad depth and definite performances if the first choice 2 aren't playing. Then I'll be looking basically as Fernandes narrow one side, and then whoever happens to be in form out of Rashford, Diallo and Garnacho. And same as you, 1 from 2 up front. I, again, have no idea where this leaves Mason Mount unless Fernandes is injured. Maybe you can get him in central midfield sometimes, but this is in no way a good setup for Mount, whatever United choose to do.
No, it's not. I mean, look, in some games where you feel like you're going to be dominated possession-wise, you could go Bruno and Mount behind Rasmus Højlund. So Højlund still gives you the counter-attacking threat with his pace, and Mount is quick and can play in that kind of support role. He's also very familiar with Thomas Tuchel, remember. He was probably the player that benefited most from Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea, and it was playing as one of the 2 off a striker quite often. So I think you can find minutes for him. Because, like, for me, you've basically got 5 players for those 2 roles behind the striker in Bruno, Rashford, Diallo, Mount, and Garnacho. And then you've got 2 strikers. So you're actually pretty well set up to play that way with those 7 players. Like, that is 7 good options. And there's variance in performance level, obviously, because a lot of them are young and inexperienced. But if you're taking the glass half full approach, that's actually a really good group of attackers. Like, in terms of talent, in terms of flexibility, in terms of being able to play different ways, there's a lot to like about that.
My only concern there is if you're playing Fernandes and Mount as supports, I don't know that there's enough counter-attacking thrust there, let's say. On the other hand, if you are dominating matches, maybe they have the guile where Garnacho doesn't necessarily all the time, where Rashford, if he's not in form, definitely doesn't.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's all about game state as well. And, there's going to be a game where you might score early and maybe then you want a bit more control. So Mason Mount makes sense to bring on. Can also play in a couple of different positions as well. So I think there's enough to like about the attacking group that, come summer, I don't actually think you need to do anything in terms of additions with the attacking group. You've already binned off Anthony. And for me, the only move I would be making with the attack in the summer would be to remove Anthony from the squad. I think the issues are further back. Right. So what is your summer approach then?
When you buy like a second-hand device or something like that, and you have to power wash it first before you actually put in all your own details and put in your own accounts and all that kind of stuff. Kind of like that. Very, very much along the same lines as you in that somebody else has made these mistakes. United have to pay for them. But basically, if you've paid 20, 30, 60, 70 million for some of these, and we can only now get 15 or 20 or 30, so be it. It's just going to have to be obviously a bit of a period, probably lasting 1-2 years, where you turn over a bulk of squad, not necessarily the whole thing. Like you've just said, there are certain parts of it, like the attack, where you can certainly see the stuff to work with. But in terms of for the first full season, let's say, I think top 4 has to be the aim, and there's got to be enough people there, enough quality there to think that that's a realistic ambition if you feel that the style of play, at least off the ball, is better than it is now. Because United are way, way off it, but win enough games to still be there or thereabouts. They have individual quality to do that. They, like we said, have the counter-attack and threat to do that. They have the options in attack to do that. So I don't think that it's inconceivable that United suddenly finish 4th next season simply by way of being better off the ball, defensively, coached, structured, everything else.
No, I don't think it is either. I think there's a real possibility that United could turn everything around over a 2-year period, say. Because I do think there's talent at the club. I do think there's enough players there that you can look at and think, okay, well, he is definitely going to be part of the next 2 to 3 years. And he's good enough to play in not only in the top 4, like to get me to the top 4, but then in the Champions League beyond that, he's going to be good enough as well. But there's definitely positions for me where I'm looking at it and thinking, you're just not up to the level, or you don't fit into how we want to play. So come summer, I have a bit of a clear out, and it's a clear out of what I think were Erik ten Hag mistakes. Now, there's other mistakes. Obviously, Casemiro was one. I would still argue, though I like the player and I advocate for keeping him, I would argue that the signing of Mason Mount was a mistake, because you spend 60 million on a fella that doesn't have a starting spot in your 11, whatever way you really shape it up, because his 2 best positions are off the left or as a 10. You have Marcus Rashford and Alejandro Garnacho off the left, and you have Bruno Fernandes as your 10. So you've basically spent 60 million on a squad player, but I like Mount, so that's a mistake that I'm happy to live with. But Onana is not a mistake that I'm happy to live with. He is just not an elite level goalkeeper. And you spent elite level money on him. And I genuinely believe that the best bit of transfer business anyone has done in the last couple of years is Inter Milan signing him and then finding a sucker to buy him for 50 odd million based on one Champions League run, despite the fact he was massively error prone in their Serie A campaign in that same season. So for me, I have to find a new home for Onana. I just have to get him out. He's not good enough. He's never going to be good enough. He reminds me a lot of Ramsdale, where there's moments where he makes big saves and you think, like, this is why people fall in love with him. You see him ping a pass and you think, that's why there's people that make compilations of him and call him a top 5 goalkeeper. And then you just watch him do the fundamental basics. Like, watch him on the Mo Salah goal at the weekend and watch his body position and how bad it is. Watch his footwork and how bad it is. And the way he almost sits down into a stance, puts all his weight into his arse, is completely counterintuitive to what you want a goalkeeper doing. You want them on their toes. He's giving himself little to no chance of being, and even his positioning, but he's given himself little to no chance of being able to save a well-placed shot to either side of him. If it's at him, he'll get it. If it's to his sides, he won't. So Onana has to go. The Harry Maguire experience. Actually, let's just go with goalkeeper. Actually, let's go position by position. So I'm getting rid of Onana. What are you doing in terms of the goalkeepers that are at the club?
Onana gone and Heaton gone, and I don't care about Bayindir either way. Second choice, so let's assume he stays.
Yeah, I've got Bayindir staying. I'm going to keep Tom Heaton though, just because I do think, well, number one, he works for the quota, but I do want some older, experienced heads around the dressing room that don't have big egos, and I don't think Tom Heaton comes with a big ego. So I'm going to keep Tom Heaton at the club, keep Bayindir at the club. So I've got my number 3 in Heaton, my number 2 in Bayindir. The guy I wanted for number 1, or I would have wanted for number 1, Liverpool have signed this summer in Mamardashvili. So I'm going to go for Gregor Kobel of Borussia Dortmund. 26 years of age. For me, he's approaching... He's not in the elite group with Alisson, Oblak, Courtois, but I do think he's in, and I would say Mike Maignan is in that group, but I do think he's kind of the best of the rest right now. I'd probably say I have him as a top 5 keeper in the world at the moment. I think he's passed Donnarumma for me, because I think he's just more consistent. So I've gone with Gregor Kobel, who I'm going to be happy to spend a similar fee to what United paid for Onana. I'll go to 50 million for him. And if I can get 25 for Onana, which I'm sure I'll find a sucker to do, I think I'm happy with that. It's 25 million spend. Yes, I have to say to the board, look, it's not my fault someone paid 50 million for this clown, but this is a really good goalkeeper that we're bringing in, so just get out of the way and let me do it. So yeah, I'm happy with him.
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.